Hello everyone, welcome to Tanya Jane English. I'm Tanya. Today I have another opportunity for you to practice your American English listening skills. Stay tuned. Today I'm excited to have my daughter with me again.
Hi.
So, recently Tianna was able to take a trip to the Netherlands, and we're going to hear a little bit about that today. So tell us a little bit about why you took this trip and how you were able to pull it off.
Well, I went to the Netherlands to present some research I had been doing from a project I did since last summer and really over about a year. I was able to go because I got scholarships from my university to go do this presentation. So.
Well, that's awesome. I know you really love to travel, so I was really grateful that Tianna was able to take this trip and do something that is really exciting and fun. Okay, so tell us a little bit about where you stayed.
All right, so for the first couple days, I stayed in a hotel near the conference center. Then, for the next, I think over the weekend, I stayed with a family friend. And then I traveled to Amsterdam and stayed in a hostel there.
Awesome. I didn't ask you this before, but which area of the Netherlands did you like the best?
Ooh, that's hard. I think probably Amsterdam. That's probably a popular choice. But I did really I liked everywhere I stayed. Maastricht and Den Haag, and yeah.
Yeah, Tianna sent me quite a few pictures, and I have to admit I was pretty jealous. I would really love to go visit Amsterdam. There are a couple of things that I would really love to see. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of that later.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the differences that you noticed between the Netherlands and the United States?
Well, that's a good question because it's very similar to the United States, but also very different. So the biggest difference I noticed was everyone rides bikes there. There were really only a few people driving cars, but most people ride their bike to get around.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's so many more people there riding bicycles?
Yeah, I think they have a much higher population density.
Population density, what does that mean?
That means that there are a lot more people for the space that they have.
Okay, that makes sense because the United States is huge.
And we're all spread out.
Yes.
But in the Netherlands, it's a very small country, and they have a lot of people there. So.
Okay,
yeah.
So here in the United States, if you were going to ride your bicycle somewhere, it really takes a lot longer to get somewhere because things are so much more spread out. When we say spread out, we mean there's further distance between things. And so actually in some of the bigger cities, we have a lot of people who ride bicycles, but it sounds like there were more there.
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah. I think one of the great things about the United States now is that more and more you're finding places that are adding a bike lane. And what is a bike lane?
A bike lane is a path separate from the road or maybe to the side where it's safe for bikes to ride and the cars will be sure to mind them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the Netherlands, first of all, did they have bike lanes?
Oh yeah, everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere they had the road, which could have been only one way, which is also different from here.
Right. We do have one-way roads, but mostly in the inner city. And what I mean by inner city is like right in the middle of the city.
Mm-hmm. And then they had a bike lane, which was raised, so just like the sidewalk.
Wow.
And was the same size as the sidewalk, sometimes even bigger.
Okay, so when you say the same size, do you mean like the same size as the sidewalk here, or just the same size as the sidewalk that was there?
I would say maybe like 1.5 times bigger than the sidewalk here. And then the sidewalk could be either equal to that or smaller. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So less people walk. But in Amsterdam, you could even walk pretty much anywhere in 20 or 30 minutes. And biking, you could get there maybe 10 minutes or less.
Well,
So
yeah, that's really different.
Yeah.
It's going to take you longer than that to get anywhere if you ride your bike here, especially where we live. We live in what is called the suburbs, or some people might say the outskirts of the city. And so we are connected to the city, you could say. We're connected to the city because if you drive from our house into the center of Phoenix where we live, you won't go outside of the city. But we live in the suburbs or the outskirts because it's around the outside of Phoenix. And things are even more spread out here than they are in Phoenix. But Phoenix in general, as a city, is more spread out than some other American cities.
Yeah, and even a lot of the people that I talk to in Europe are really surprised when I tell them that the nearest bus stop is 30-minute walk from my house.
Yeah.
So that's unheard of.
Right. And that's not typical of living in the city. When we lived in the city, you could get to a bus stop in a couple of minutes, but nothing like when we were in England and there were bus stops everywhere.
Maybe right outside your door.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was super convenient there. So I think that public transportation is definitely improving in the United States, but we still have a ways to go.
Slowly but surely.
Right, exactly.
Hopefully, surely.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what other differences did you notice?
The weather was very different. Here, it's really intensely hot, but also very dry. So in the Netherlands, it was practically chilly by our standards, temperature-wise, but the humidity was so high that it made it feel really hot. And they don't have air conditioning in a lot of buildings. So the hotel I stayed in the first couple nights, you could pay 10 euros extra per night to get an air-conditioned room.
That's really different.
It's really different.
I would say, I think it's safe to say every hotel in the United States has air conditioning. If that's not completely true, I can say this for sure. Every hotel I've ever stayed in, which is a lot of hotels, all of the hotels I've ever stayed in have air conditioning for sure. And we're comparing the weather of summer here in July, the end of June and July, to the weather there in June and July. So you weren't there for the whole year, of course. We aren't experts on the weather there or here, for that matter. Just sharing some of our experience. But Arizona, especially this part of Arizona where we live, is known for its very hot, very dry weather. So as an example, today, the temperature here in July is 41 degrees for a high. Our highest temperature today is 41 degrees Celsius. And it's very dry. We often in the summer get much higher than 41 degrees. So
a couple years ago, in 1 or 2 days in summer, it got to be 49 degrees.
Right. And that's not unheard of here. It's not common to happen a lot, but it is happening year after year. So maybe just for 1 or 2 days in each of the years. So what else did I want to say about that? Okay, so air conditioning in the hotels we talked about, but we have air conditioning in our house. Pretty much everyone I know has an air conditioner. That wasn't true here in Phoenix maybe 30 or 40 years ago. Not everyone had an air conditioner. I know that again, let's say 20 years ago, my brother and I had an apartment together. We didn't have an air conditioner. We had what's called a swamp cooler. Do you remember what a swamp cooler is?
Yeah, isn't that what we had in house when I was little?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in a house in Central Phoenix, a very small house that had swamp cooling, but we also had what's called a window unit air conditioner. So a window unit air conditioner, and I've seen them in pictures when I talked to students in Europe or Russia, other countries that have a window unit, is just a small air conditioner that you can put in a window, or you might cut a hole in an outside wall, an exterior wall, a hole that would go to the outside, and you can put your window unit in there. So 15 years ago or so, we had a swamp cooler and a window unit. And we would not use the window unit very much during the year. We used the swamp cooler a lot. Generally speaking, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people in the Phoenix Valley, in this area of Arizona, will use their air conditioner starting as early as March or April, for sure all the way through October and sometimes even November. So it's a long time that they use the air conditioner. And swamp cooler is much less expensive. It doesn't take as much energy, and it's more efficient. We could do a whole video on swamp coolers, but it's just an interesting difference about Arizona as opposed to the rest of the United States. They aren't as common in other states. There probably are some, but generally speaking, they're not. They're not as common. So the weather was different. What is something you missed from the United States, or specifically here where we live?
Yeah, well, of course I missed my family.
Aww.
But I also really missed Mexican food.
Which is funny that we say that's from the United States, but here in Arizona it's really common.
And it's really yummy. So I have favorite Mexican food places here in Arizona, and that it's different other places. So
right. Well, we're very lucky here because the Mexican food that we get here, a lot of the times, very authentic. There are some restaurants here that are not real authentic Mexican food, but our family really prefers more authentic food. I know I have friends who really like more of what we call Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
That is kind of a Mexican-American food. I like Tex-Mex as well, but the restaurants I really like are the restaurants that are authentic Mexican food.
For sure.
So, all right. Any last things you'd like to add about Amsterdam or your trip? I think we covered it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would like to add, I kind of hinted towards it at the beginning of the video, is a little bit of why I was jealous. I love tulips, for one thing, the flower tulips.
Yeah.
And tell a little bit about where you got to go.
I got to go to a tulip museum and what's called the Bloemen Market, which is where they sell like tulip bulbs. And it's a floating market, so they're all boats that you can access from the street. And it's really cool. You just walk from shop to shop, and they have lots of tulips. There was one market that had flowers hanging from the ceiling. It was really beautiful. Gosh. So, yeah.
What's your favorite flower?
Right now, my favorite flower is the sunflower, but I used to really like roses too. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick a favorite flower, but I love tulips. I've loved tulips my whole life. There's a lot of other flowers that I like as well. But the other thing that I was really jealous of is that Tianna got to go see the Anne Frank house.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And I read The Diary of Anne Frank when I was really young. I can't remember, maybe 11. I know you've read it too.
Probably the same age.
So I was I was actually very, very jealous of that. And she sent a lot of really cool pictures of artwork and that kind of thing. You might want to check out our Instagram. We could share a couple of the pictures that Tianna took while she was in Amsterdam. So.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all for today. Love to hear what your favorite flower is, if you have one. And also, we were going to ask
You could comment where your favorite place is to travel, or if you've ever traveled to the United States.
And if you have been here in the United States, where did you go, and what was your favorite part? All right, we're looking forward to reading those comments, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.